I'm Robert Scafe of the Expository Writing Program at the University of Oklahoma. In this video, I will introduce you to the art of writing a clear, coherent thesis statement. In a research essay, the thesis statement reflects your conclusions after having read and analyzed a variety of sources. Now, this variety can make it a challenge to crystallize your main findings into a concise statement of 1 or 2 sentences, but it's very important that you do so. The reason is simple. A unified statement of your argument that appears early in the essay keeps you on track as you lay out the evidence and the reasons to support it. Without such a concise statement of your overall argument, your essay may become confused, uncertain, or directionless. So though composing a thesis is a complex task, you will greatly simplify your work if you recognize that a strong thesis always has 2 parts: the claim, or the part where you state what you think, and the support, where you indicate the reasons you think what you do. The most important feature of a good thesis claim is that it's bold enough to require further proof. It should not be so obvious that most people would simply accept it without asking how and why it's so. A bold claim, in turn, leads to the support part of your thesis, where you gesture toward the supporting proofs in the body of your essay. By indicating how you intend to prove your bold claim, the support part of your thesis inspires confidence in your reader. It provides a roadmap of where the essay will take them. To illustrate the importance of having both a strong claim and specific support, let's examine a series of theses about the same topic. The following 4 theses are for a paper about a captivity narrative, a genre of American colonial writing where a European settler captured by Native Americans tells their story of their life among the natives. Read each example and decide whether this potential thesis has a bold claim, whether it has specific support, or if perhaps it has neither or both. You may want to pause the video while you do this. Okay, let's see if any of these thesis statements combines a strong claim with some specific support for that claim. 1. A narrative of the life of Miss Mary Jemison tells the story of a white woman's life of captivity among the Seneca Indians in the 18th century. Now, this first attempt is not a thesis at all, but merely a description of the paper's topic. The writer makes no claim that would require further proof, and so naturally, he feels no need to suggest the supporting proofs that this paper will offer. 2. Mary Jemison's description of her life among the Seneca Indians successfully challenged colonial Americans' stereotypes about Native Americans. This thesis is better because it puts forth a claim about Jemison's captivity narrative, a claim that is just one of many possible interpretations. This author believes Jemison's story effectively overcame the colonists' misunderstandings of Native American culture. But this is just one possibility, and actually a pretty surprising one, given that Jemison was captured and taken from her family by the Native Americans she describes. You can certainly imagine somebody arguing that Jemison's story didn't succeed in promoting a genuine understanding of Seneca culture, that it perhaps distorted Native American culture through a European lens, for example. This thesis advances a good claim, but it does not offer much in the way of support. We're left wondering, what sort of stereotypes did Jemison's story contradict? How did she effectively convey a genuine picture of Native American culture to colonial Americans? A few specific indications of how the essay intends to prove its case would really benefit this thesis statement. Let's see if the next candidate does better. 3. This paper will analyze Jemison's description of family life, morality, and violence in Seneca culture. Now, this third example may look like a thesis to you because it provides several specific indications about what the essay will discuss: family life, morality, and violence in Seneca culture. We have some specific supports for our main claim, but unfortunately, we don't know what that claim is. We don't know what argument all of these supporting ideas will serve. I call this the grocery list style of thesis, and it's one of the most common errors that student writers will make when trying to write a strong thesis statement. So remember, yes, it's a good idea to be specific about the parts of your paper, but these specifics should always serve an overarching argument, the claim that distinguishes your interpretation from that of others. Without that main claim, the most complete list of supporting points is still not a thesis statement. Now, let's look at an example that does pair a strong claim with supporting proofs. Number 4. Jemison successfully challenged colonial stereotypes about savage Native Americans by using familiar notions such as family loyalty and warrior honor to help white readers contextualize the violence in her tale. This thesis statement advances a strong claim and provides several indications of how the author intends to back up that claim in the essay. The main claim is that Jemison's story effectively challenged European colonists' misunderstanding of Native American peoples. But having made this arguable claim, the writer also keeps the reader on board by promising to prove it in a number of specific ways. For example, by adding the words savage and violence, she suggests what specific kinds of stereotypes Jemison challenged. And by gesturing toward ideas of family loyalty and warrior honor, she gives some specific ways European colonists might be able to understand and sympathize with their Native American counterparts. By having a claim as well as specific reasons, this author has constructed a thesis that's both bold and believable. In sum, when you revise your thesis, test for the boldness of its claim and for the specificity of its support. How do you tell if your claim is really arguable? If it completes a thought beginning, "I contend that," your thesis claim may be bold. I contend that Mary Jemison tells the story of her captivity by Native Americans. Well, that doesn't make sense because it's not a contention. I contend that Jemison successfully challenged colonial American stereotypes about Native Americans. Now that sounds right because it puts forth one possible interpretation among many. It's a contention. But if you really want to be sure if your thesis is sufficiently edgy, you can spell out the alternative view it challenges, like this. Although it seems, I contend. Notice how historian Louise S. Robbins does this in her article about the censorship of a library in Bartlesville, Oklahoma in 1950. Although the attack on the Bartlesville Library gained most of the attention, a close examination of the events reveals that the underlying issue was race. To understand the incident and appreciate its implications, one must attempt to appreciate the landscape and climate of Cold War Bartlesville, Oklahoma. Now, by pointing out that most people focus on the attack on the library, Robbins leaves no doubt about what's new and original in her own reading, that there was a subtext of racism beneath these attacks on un-American books during the Cold War. This, although I contend trick, is just one quick way to test your thesis statement. In fact, it's the job of your whole introduction to pose the tough questions your thesis will answer, or to frame the problem it will solve. Please watch my next video, Introductions, for some more advanced ways of motivating your thesis statement in your introduction.